Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating piece of source material. It's a children's animated episode titled Jungle Ki Sair, which basically translates to Jungle Trip. And what's so incredibly cool about this show is how perfectly the creators balance two completely different worlds. On one hand, you've got this highly practical, step-by-step guide to travel safety and kids' health, but on the other hand, it's a deeply spiritual narrative, completely rooted in Islamic traditions and mindfulness. So let's unpack exactly how these two concepts weave together side by side. Here is a quick look at our travel itinerary for today. We'll cover the start of the journey, travel etiquette, unexpected travel bumps, understanding traveler's diarrhea, the probiotic solution, and finally, reaching the destination safely. To give you a sense of how this all flows, let's look at the timeline. It's a dual-track journey the entire way. Right at minute 1, physical pre-travel prep is instantly paired with prayer. By minute 20, road etiquette is matched with spiritual etiquette. Around minute 45, we hit some mechanical and physical crises that require both faith-based coping and actual medical intervention. And wrapping up at minute 60, safe arrival is met with prayers of protection. Okay, let's start with section 1, the start of the journey, packing and prayers. It's really interesting how responsibility is established right out of the gate. The girls pack the usual road trip essentials, right? A camera, water bottles, and let's be real, getting kids to pack just the essentials and not their entire bedroom is basically a miracle in itself. But then the cartoon layers in a deeper, spiritual significance to the scheduling. They specifically highlight that they're traveling on a Thursday. The characters explain that starting a journey on a Thursday is a sunnah, which is a practice preferred by the Prophet Muhammad. Alongside that, they lay down the physical ground rules. Secure your belongings and never, ever travel alone. That's why you see adult guardians and teachers actively chaperoning the trip. Now, before the bus even moves an inch, the narrative anchors the kids with faith. The teacher asks the group what they should do first, and boom, the immediate answer is to recite the Safar Ki Dua, or the travel prayer. The quote they use translates to, "Glory to him who has subjected this to us." By kicking things off this way, it shows the young audience that a super normal, everyday action, like hopping on a yellow school bus, can actually have a very strong spiritual foundation. Moving right along to section 2, travel etiquette, physical and spiritual. Notice the brilliant contrast happening here. On the physical safety side, we have strict rules. Keep your hands inside the moving bus, sit properly so you don't go flying when the brakes are hit, and keep your trash in a bag until you find a dustbin. Standard stuff. But look at the spiritual mindfulness side, or the adab. Every single physical rule has a spiritual counterpart. While keeping their hands inside, the girls engage in continuous dhikr, or remembrance of God, saying phrases like Bismillah and Alhamdulillah. When they're sitting, one character slips off her shoes, referencing a hadith, a saying of the Prophet, that taking off your shoes rests the feet. The physical rules keep the body totally safe, while the spiritual mindfulness keeps the journey peaceful. I absolutely love this next detail. It is just so clever. The show actually uses the geography of the trip as a teaching moment. As the bus is driving up and down this mountainous jungle terrain, the kids are taught that moving uphill is a time to say Allahu Akbar, God is great. And going downhill, that's a trigger to say Subhanallah, glory be to God. The literal physical topography acts as a trigger for specific religious recitations. It is such a great way to keep kids engaged with both their changing environment and their faith at the exact same time. Let's transition into section 3, unexpected bumps, dealing with crises. So the first major conflict hits when the school bus suddenly breaks down. Naturally, the kids are super disappointed and anxious. They think the trip is completely ruined. But instead of letting them panic, the show provides a highly effective, spiritually grounded way to cope. Step 1, practice sabr, which means patience. The older characters remind the younger ones to trust that whatever happens might actually be for the best. Step 2 is to recite Durud Pak, sending blessings upon the Prophet, which they explain brings blessings and helps melt away those worries. It's essentially a really practical emotional regulation technique, but it's framed entirely through a spiritual lens. Eventually, the bus gets fixed. But it begs the question, what happens when an unexpected physical illness strikes the trip? This brilliantly pivots the story from an external mechanical delay to an internal medical crisis involving a character named Raikaya. This brings us to section 4, traveler's diarrhea, a medical focus. Poor Rika starts getting severe stomach pains and dizziness. And she's super confused, right? Because she hasn't eaten any junk food all day. Well, the show brings in a doctor character to clear up a massive misconception. He explains that travelers' diarrhea isn't just caused by eating bad food. It's actually a condition triggered by the sheer stress of transit. Things like sudden weather changes, drinking different water, general travel fatigue, and even the physical toll of bouncing around on bad roads. It's an awesome educational moment that instantly eases the guilt of a kid who thinks they did something wrong to get sick. Which leads us to Section 5, the probiotic solution, treating the illness. To help Rika out, the doctor introduces a specific anti-diarrheal probiotic named Protege, and the source highlights this really fascinating feature called the Shield of Power of 5. So they're framing this medicine not just as a quick fix, but as a literal protective shield for the stomach. And honestly, it's a beautiful little parallel. It perfectly mirrors the spiritual shields of prayer the kids have been using all day to protect themselves on the trip. Let's break down the benefits the doctor outlines. First, it specifically targets travelers' diarrhea by boosting friendly, helpful bacteria to balance the stomach. But let's be honest, from a kid's perspective, and really any parent who has ever tried to negotiate with a toddler over medicine knows this, the absolute most important feature is the kid-friendly strawberry flavor. Plus, it's versatile. You can eat it directly like a powder or dissolve it in water. The problem is diagnosed clearly, and the solution is accessible, tasty, and highly effective. And finally, Section 6, reaching safely, final destination. Thanks to the probiotic, Rika bounces back quickly. The girls buckle up for the final steep climb, and they make it. They arrive at the jungle. But the journey doesn't end the second they step off the bus. The source gives us one last practice. Upon arriving, the girls recite a prophetic prayer. I seek refuge in the perfect words of Allah from the evil of what He has created. The teacher explains this ensures they are protected from any harm in the jungle until it's time to go home. It's this spiritual mindfulness that beautifully completes the circle of their entire journey. Ultimately, what Jungle Key Sair achieves is this absolutely perfect harmony of faith-based coping mechanisms and modern medical solutions. It shows kids that relying on faith for protection and patience doesn't mean you ignore the need for seatbelts, or using dustbins, or taking scientifically backed probiotics. The physical and the spiritual are literal partners on this road trip. So I want to leave you with this final thought. We've just seen how effectively this cartoon blends these two worlds for kids, but how can we apply this balanced approach, this mix of emotional or spiritual preparedness alongside physical, practical readiness to our own daily journeys and the unexpected bumps we face? It's definitely something to chew on the next time you pack your bags. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.